Yeah, good evening, everyone. So yesterday we have discussed about how we can connect, how our application can connect with the multiple database based on specific environments. Okay. So which concept we have used? Spring profiles. Spring profiles concept we have used to connect with different database. So now I will show you whether whenever we are inserting the data, whether our data is going to insert in dev environment or production environment or default environment, so that you can understand very easily. Okay, so let me open the class. What is that controller APIs we have created? Employee REST controller, right? So let me open our resources folder. So there is a application dot properties file. So now let me start the server. So let me disable default configure Spring profiles as of now. Okay. So now I am starting the server. You can see server started successfully, and let me open H2 console. H2 console is not enabled. How we can enable H2 console? By specifying a spring dot h2 dot console dot enabled is called true. So now let me open H2 console. So you can see H2 console now. Admin. So it's not connecting. Why? Let me check. So default database admin and admin. Let me try it again. It's not connected. So let me check. So why it's not connected? What you have to do? You have to check the console. Okay, it is connecting default emp underscore database, but it's not allowing us to connect. Yeah, let me start the server and stop the server so that it will reflect again. You can check the log. H2 console is available on default emp database. What is the username? Admin, and so admin is the username. Let me go to browser employee data. So here you can see which database it is connecting. Default underscore emp underscore db. So this is the URL you have to give to connect with H2 database, right? So now admin, you can see employee still is not connected. Let me copy complete URL. Yeah, you can see now H2 console is open. So as of now, there is no data available in employee table. So you can see, so currently which database we are connecting? We haven't enabled Spring profiles, right? So by default, Spring profiles if not enabled, our application will connect with application.properties file, and the properties application.properties file which is having the database default underscore emp database. So data will insert inside this database. So let me insert one record in database. So from where we can send the request? REST client. So what is the API to create the employee? Create employee. Create employee is the API. to insert the data in database. So now we already have the request. Let me send the request now. 404. Why 404? Create employee localhost colon 8080. Must not be empty. Okay. So what it is saying? Must not be empty. Create employee. Why? Let me go and check. Check. We have provided all the details. If you go and check create employee, you can check the console exception. Method argument not valid exception. What is that? Method argument not valid exception. It is saying employee field email rejected value. Yeah, field email rejected value. Why there is no email here? That is the problem. So whenever you are facing the issue, what you have to check? You have to read the error properly. What it is saying? Validation failed. Why? Because you can see there. It is clearly saying employee object field email rejected value. Field email rejected value. You can check the request. So I have not given the email. That is the problem. So now email colon. So you have to specify the email now. Rohit at gmail.com. That's it. Now let me send the request. You can see employees created. So where you can see, so you can check where it is inserted. You can see employees created in H2 in-memory database, the default database. You can see default underscore emp underscore database. So the properties file, which default properties file, which is having default emp database. So data is inserted here. Now I am going to enable Spring profiles. Spring profiles. So how you can enable? By specifying spring dot profiles dot active property. So now here I am providing dev environments. So you can see dev environment uh, properties file. So whenever you are giving profiles value as a dev environment, so which properties file is going to execute? Application. You can see left hand side application hyphen dev dot properties file. So inside that you can check. So which database it is connecting? Dev underscore employee underscore database. So earlier we are connected with default underscore emp underscore database, right? Now our application should connect with dev database. So this is our dev database URL. So let me insert the data. Send the request from the talent API. Just go and check. Send the request. So data is inserted. We got the success response. So now check the H2 console. See, here's a white label error. H2 console is giving white label error because it is not able to find out, because in a dev.properties file we have disabled the H2 console. We have disabled the H2 console. So we need to enable it. Just enable that H2 console in dev.properties file. So that means our application is able to is trying to connect with dev database, and it is able to load application hyphen dev.properties file. So now let me open the H2 console. Now H2 console is enabled. So earlier it is connected with the default EMP, right? Default database. If you try to log in, it will not connect. You can see if you try to log in as many number of time, it won't connect. Why? Because now we have enabled Spring profiles. Yeah, you can see in the console which is connecting which database now. You can check dev underscore emp database. So what is the URL? So this is the URL, right? So you can copy from here, or you can copy from properties file anywhere. So dev database dot properties file is having to connect with dev hyphen emp database. So let me copy the URL and go to your H2 console, change the URL and type admin is the password. See, now you can able to connect the H2 console, run the employee table. So this table is not having any data because your server is restarted. So whenever your server is restarted, you are always it will create new table, right? So now let me create the employee talent API. Again, I'm sending same request. So you can go and check in H2 console. See, our data is inserted in dev database, dev-emp underscore database. So now our data is inserting in dev environment. Now I want to check that part in prod environment. So I want to, my application, I want to connect with production environment. So how we can implement? Again, go to application.properties. Just you have to specify prod. The moment you specify prod environment, so your application will connect with production database. So the file, which file belongs to production? Application hyphen prod.properties belongs to production environment. So it will connect with MySQL database, not H2 in-memory database. Our application will connect with production database with MySQL database. What is the DB name? Prod underscore emp underscore DB. So let me insert the data now. So let me send the request. So you can see I got the response. So if you execute S2 console, you can see it will not connect. Why? Because now our application is connecting with MySQL database. This one is belongs to H2 in-memory database. The screen which you are seeing, this is H2 in-memory database. Now your application is not going to connect with H2 in-memory database. It is going to connect with MySQL database. Let me open SQL Yog. So data is inserted. Let me check. So I am opening the SQL Yog client. So now close. So which is the database? Prod underscore DB underscore database. What is the table? Employee. So now let me open the table. How you can open? Right click and open the table. You can see record is inserted. I want to insert another record. Let me try inserting another record. Send the request. Open the MySQL database and you can fetch the query again, right? So table data, just refresh it. You can see updated data. Refresh object browser, prod underscore database, and then open employee table. So it's not refreshing. Let me write select star from employee. Just execute this query. Employee, yeah, spell mistake. You can see two records are inserted, Rohit Sharma. Why? Because I haven't changed the values. So to testing purpose, another record I will insert. I will insert Virat Kohli. Okay, Virat Kohli. Okay, let me send the request again. So now you can go to, you can see table data here also. So okay, you can click table data or you can query the database. So just execute it. You can see Virat Kohli inserted in MySQL database. This is how you can use Spring Boot profile feature in Spring Boot application. Very easy, guys. Okay. So now today I am going to explain you Spring Data JPA. Okay, Spring Data JPA. So far we have connected. Let me open the file. Spring Data JPA. Let me open the architecture of Spring Boot application. So where it is there? Not this one. You can see so far we have connected with so you can see this is the architecture of Spring Boot application. So we have created controller, we have created service class, and also we have created DAO layer, and then we have connected with the database. In GDO layer, we have written all the business logics. So far, our application connected with what kind of database? So HT in-memory database we have connected, and we have connected with MySQL database. So with the help of which concept? JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. There is a JDBC template object in Spring Boot application or traditional Spring application. So with the help of JDBC, we have inserted the data in database. So now we are going to discuss about JPA and Hibernate. So I am going to explain you what is the before explaining JPA. I will explain what is the problem in JDBC. Okay, so let me open the class repository. What is that repository class? Employee repository or database, which employee JDBC repository. So whenever you are working with the employee, whenever you are using JDBC template, so JDBC template is having certain limitations. What is that limitation? So you have to write the queries. So it is actually we are depending, our application is always depend on database. So Spring JDBC always depends on database, right? So you must write the SQL queries, and also it is complex also. You have to write lot of logic. Insert queries you have to implement, and find queries you have to implement, update query you have to implement, delete query you have to implement. So Spring JDBC is a database dependent software. Spring JDBC belongs to database dependent. That is one limitation with JDBC. And also you have to write lot of logic to insert the data. You have to write queries, and you have to depends on the queries. If someone who is having who doesn't have the knowledge on queries, he cannot use JDBC. So if you don't have knowledge on queries, you can use JPA. So you just need to have basic queries knowledge. By using JPA, you can, without writing the queries, you can insert the data in database. Okay, how we are going to insert the database, I will explain you later. So now JDBC is a database dependent software. It has some limitation. You have to write queries manually. And also JDB, before this is actually Spring JDBC template. So before JDBC template, if you want to connect with the database, lot of logic you have to write. What kind of logic you have to write? Let me open. If you want to connect with the database, you have to create connection object, and you have to create statement or prepared prepared statement object. Again, you have to create result set object to extract the data. So these many things you have to write the code if you want to insert the database. But when you are using, this is a traditional JDBC environment. In traditional JDBC environment, you should create connection, you should create statement object and prepared statement object based on your requirement. And again, you have to iterate a result set object, and you can extract the data from that. So very almost 20 steps, 20 steps or 15 lines of code you have to write to insert the data. So whereas JDBC template is optimized after that. So JDBC template, you no need to create the connection object, and you no need to create the statement and prepared statement, and you no need to extract the you know to write the result set object and all. So what is the difference between a plain JDBC and JDBC template? So you no need to create the connection, you no need to close the connection, you no need to create the prepared statement, you no need to create the select statements with the help of JDBC template. So Spring Boot will take care of it. So this JDBC template, again, internally this JDBC template uses JDBC only. Okay, internally the logic which we need to connect connection statement and all, so this is going to create by JDBC template object. So it is the code is optimized with the help of JDBC template. Now still JDBC template also is having some problem. It is a database dependent software. you need to always depend on database queries. So to overcome that problem, and JPA came into picture, Hibernate came into picture to avoid database dependent, to avoid database dependency, to avoid database dependencies. Spring Data, JPA, and Hibernate came into picture. Some people may have confusion. So what is the Hibernate? What is JPA? Both are same only. So Hibernate is a implementation of JPA, nothing else. Hibernate is a implementation of JPA. So nothing but you can assume like I can tell you easiest way. You can say Hibernate is a class and JPA is a interface. That's it. What is happening? They have in generally in Hibernate we used to write lot of logic. You have to create mapping files, XML files, and you have to create the connections, everything. But you have to write lot of logic. You have to open the transaction. You have to close the transaction. So all those things optimized in JPA, Java Persistence API. So Hibernate is a implementation of JPA. Now I will tell you what is Hibernate and what is JPA. So you can say like JPA and Hibernate. You can see, I can type here Hibernate and JPA. So both are ORM softwares. ORM softwares. Hibernate and JPA nothing but ORM framework. ORM software or ORM framework. ORM framework. ORM in the sense object relational mapping. What does that mean? ORM in the sense object relational mapping. So I will say, so you may have doubt actually, sir, how Hibernate is going to connect with the database without writing the queries and all. So now I am going to explain you here. So you can see, let me open our entity class. See what is this? This is our employee class object, right? So employee class is having how many properties? ID, first name, last name, mobile number, and email and age. Four properties we have. So to insert data in these properties, we have written SQL queries, right? So now what JPA will do? Java Persistence API. So Java Persistence API nothing but the relationship between Java class object with relationship. Okay, relationship between Java class object and database table, nothing but ORM framework. ORM framework. You can easily understand. Some people can find the definition in Google. So many people have confusion. So many people they will buy the logic actually. So the very big definition will be there in Google if you search it actually. So I will teach you in very simple manner what is ORM framework in the sense object relation mapping. What is ORM full form? Object relational mapping. Object relation mapping nothing but Java, the relationship between Java class object and database table, nothing but object relational mapping. The relationship between Java class object and database table is nothing but object relational mapping. That is called ORM framework. So now if you see here, so what is this class name? Employee table. So sorry, employee class. Employee Java class. So employee Java class. So this class will map with the database table. So what is the database table? So what is the column name? Employee. What is the table name? Employee. The relationship between employee table name and the Java class is nothing but ORM, object relational mapping. And also the relationship between the properties of Java class, relation with your table database columns. The Java class properties relation with the columns in database table. Let me tell you one example. Let's say here, go to your class. So here long ID. this ID will map with the column in your database. What is that column? You can see here, id is the first column. You can see id, first name, last name, right? So this first, before that, employee pojo class object, this will map with employee table in database. This will map with employee table in database. This is the employee table in database, right? So your pojo class object will map with uh, employee or database table in sorry, database table like employee. So your employee class map with so I will write here, okay, you can easily understand. Employee class map with database table employee class with map with the database table employee. Similarly, the properties which are available in employee class, so these will be matched with this column. This column will map with uh, this employee tables column, what is the column? ID. Similarly, this first name property of your bean class will map with first name column, first name. So remaining rest others are same as is. So similarly, remaining properties also same. So all the properties which are available in employee pojo class object, those properties will map with database table columns in the database. So this relationship is nothing but ORM, object relational mapping. So now how we are going to implement that? It's very easy. You can understand very easy. I am going to implement that from scratch. How now? What I will do, I will close this project. Whatever I have done yesterday, let me close this project. So by implementing example project, you can understand very easily what is Hibernate, what Hibernate will do, what kind of operations Hibernate can perform. You are going to check live now. So how we can check? So let me close talent API, not needed now. No, H2 console not needed. So from where we can create the project, guys? Spring Initializer. How we can create a Spring Boot project with the help of Spring Initializer. So just to go to Spring Initializer in Google. So here, so you have a Java selected, and let me select the Maven project, and then so you already knows, right? So which version of Spring Boot we have to select? See, Spring Boot version, it is updated. So before last class, I think before last class we have created 3.1.4. Now it is updated with 3.1.5. So Spring Boot version is keep going to update. Spring Boot team is keep going to update Spring futures actually. So okay. So now what we have to do? We have to give the package name. So what we are going to create? We are going to create one simple JPA Spring Boot project. So now I will give Spring JPA. I will just give com dot Spring JPA. Okay. So Spring, not Spring JPA, Spring Boot JPA. Spring Boot JPA. So now artifact name. So what is this artifact name? Artifact name nothing but your project name. So project name also will give Spring Boot JPA. And this is the package name, your root folder of project. This is belongs to this name is belongs to your root folder of the root package of the package, root package of your project. And then now we can download easily. So I don't want to package name two times. So this is your base package. So now we need to add the dependencies, right? So we need to add the dependencies. So first we are going to create web services, right? Web services. Still we haven't started web application. So far we are going to create RESTful APIs. So let me add Spring Web Module to dependency. What web module dependency will do, we can create web applications as well as we can create RESTful APIs. Now, so which database we are going to connect? Let's say H2 console. I want to connect with H2 database initially. So okay, so you control press H2 database. So H2 database I have added. So earlier, how we have connected H2 database with the help of JDBC template. So now we are going to connect with JPA. So we need to add the dependency, just Spring Data. You can see Spring Data JDBC, select that dependency. So we have added Spring Web H2. We are going to insert the data in H2 in-memory database with the help of not Spring Data JDP guys, Spring Data JPA. So you have to add Spring Data JPA. This is the dependency. Spring Data JPA dependency. You need to add. Let me remove JDBC not needed. You just need Spring Data JPA dependency. Now I want to add another one more dependency. What is that? Spring Dev Tools. Spring Dev Tools. I think everybody aware of it, right? So Spring Dev Tools. Without restarting the server, your changes will reflect in Tomcat server. So for that, we have to use Spring Dev Tools dependency. So these dependencies are enough to create to implement the JPA functionality. So Spring Web, H2 in-memory database, Spring Data JPA, and Spring Boot Dev Tools. These four dependencies. Without Spring Dev Tools also we can develop. The Spring Dev Tools is optional. Okay. Okay. So now how we can create the project now? By clicking generate button. So just click on generate button. Once you click on generate button, copy that, and where we need to keep. So I think I have closed it. Okay, where we need to copy. So generally I used to paste in Spring applications folder. I need to paste Spring application folder. You can paste it here. So you can put your project in any folder in your machine. So I am keeping in this folder. Just extract the file. Extract that file. So that's it. Spring Data, Spring Boot JPA. Spring Boot data JPA is extracted. So I just want to copy the path. Copy the path. Now we need to import that project into our Eclipse. How we can import? Go to file. There is a import option. So what you have to select? Maven. You have to select Maven. So what is that? Existing Maven projects. Existing Maven projects. Click on next. And then specify that URL. Enter. Click enter. Specify that URL. Click enter. So your project is import automatically. You can see. So all the dependencies related to. If you observe here, guys, you can see all the jar files belongs to your JPA related dependencies are download will start from here. You can see what will happen. So we have added a Spring Data JPA dependency. So all the jars are trying to download from the Maven repository. You can see jars download started now. So first time it will take time. So next time it will not take much time because we have added dependency newly. So Java Docs source and Java Docs also is going to download. Hibernate jar, you can see here. Hibernate jars are downloading and Jakarta also downloading. You can see that is the beauty of Maven projects. So you no need to download the jar files manually. So Maven framework will take care of all the dependencies which are needed to our project. This is the main feature in Maven build. Some people will ask you in interview why we are using Maven projects. So you can tell whenever you are doing that project development, we need a dependency on jar files to create the projects. So before Maven project, we used to download the jar files manually and those jar files will be copied to your project. So everything will be a manual process. So the moment Maven came into picture, we no need to download jar files manually. Maven framework will take care of it, right? Okay, so now our project is ready. Spring Boot JPA. You can see this is our folder structure, and this is our main Spring Boot Java class. So everybody aware of it, right? We have done so many examples so far, right? Everybody should aware of by this time. So our execution will start from Spring Boot JPA application. Okay, so now let me start the server. What will happen? Okay, before starting the server, what we have to do? Let me go open the architecture. So initially, whenever you are creating the projects, always follow the architecture, guys. If you follow the architecture initially, so later you no need to check this architecture. Why? Because you are doing multiple examples. If you open the architecture, you can understand and implement the project. So you have a plan now. So what we need to create, we are going to create one REST API. So let me plan accordingly. First, what we are going to create, REST APIs. Next, what we are going to do, so we are going to insert the data. So in which database we are going to insert? H2 in memory database. H2 in memory database. What is other one? So which concept we are going to insert the data in H2 in memory database? Which concept we are going to use? Earlier we have used JDBC template. Now we are going to use JPA or Hibernate. We are going to insert the data with the help of JPA or Hibernate. So these three things you have to implement. Now, what is the first step? REST API. If you want to create API, what we need to write the code? Go to your project. What we need to create? Go to your architecture. So where you can create in controller. If you want to specify REST API, if you want to specify REST API, where you need to write the code in controller, inside the controller. So just to go there, and if you want to create the controller, what we need to do? We'll create separate package, right? Create separate package, right click on the project and click on controller. Yeah, controller package is created. So what we need to create inside the controller, again go to your architecture. What we have to create? Controller class. This is the one which I am highlighting with hand mark, right? So with, you can see API layer. API layer will write in inside the controller. So now we need to create the controller class. Right click on that package and then click on class. So what is the name? So let me create a employee rest controller employee. We are going to create employee details, right? So employee rest controller. So let me finish the class. So now this is simple Java class, right? So how you can make this class as a controller, rest controller, with the help of rest controller annotation. Now this class will become a rest controller, right? So that's it. So now next, go to your architecture controller you have created. So now next, what you need to create? Service layer. What is that? Next step, service layer. So to create service layer, so what we need to create? Again another package called dot service. Create, and then right click on that package, go to click on new button and create the class. Which service class we are going to use? We are going to use employee service class. Employee service. Employee service. Now click finish button. So employee service. So your service class object is ready. So now next, what we need to create? We are going to create our repository layer. We have created controller, we have created service, and then now we have to create repository layer. So now again go to your project directory, right click on the root folder of the package. Someone is created a package in src main Java. So whenever you are creating child packages, you always should create inside the root package, guys. If you don't create inside the root package, so your application will not work. So Spring container cannot identify your contain your bean classes, whatever classes you have written, your Spring container cannot identify that. So you should always create the packages inside the root package of your project. So the for your project, which one is the root package? Com.spring JPA is your root package. So inside that only you have to create sub packages. So now we need to create a repository. Repo repository package. Just click on finish button. Now you need to create new repository class. So what is the repository class? Employee. I will give employee repository. Okay, employee repository. Finish. So employee repository. So how this class will become repository? So you have to declare at the rate repository annotation. By specifying at the rate repository annotation, your class will become as a repository. During the architecture, we have created controller, we have created service, we have created repository. So now next question. So what we need, so you need to send the data. From where you can send the data? From the postman and RESTful client. You can see left hand side. So from where we can send the data as part of if you want to invoke as REST APIs, you have to send it from REST client. So you have to send the data. So if you want to send the data, what you need? You need a Pojo class or entity class. You need is a bean class. So let me create entity. So for that, again, you have to understand the architecture. If you understand the architecture, you can create the project by your own, guys. If you don't understand the architecture, you can't understand the project. By looking this architecture, you can create the project very easily. Now first what we have created? Controller, service and DAO. So now we need to send the data from the REST client, right? So how, who will carry your data? Who will carry your data? Your model object, right? So now you got to know, I need a model object to send the data to your controller. So now you need a model object. Right click on the package, create another package called model. By looking into architecture, you can create the project by your own, guys. Simple, very very simple. You no need to remember nothing. If you forget in future also, no need to bother. Just you have to open the architecture. Okay, if I want to create the Spring Boot application, I need to create these many components, right? So you will get to know what are the components you have to create during the Spring Boot application project creation. By looking this architecture, you can easily create the project. So now, so model object. So what is the model object? So let me create class. I will create employee object, employee model object. Let me create it. Click on finish button. That's it. So now what your employee class will have? So what is the requirement? So we need to create the REST APIs for employee. So you need to send the employee data from REST client. So what you need? You need a model object. What you need? You need a model object. So now you have to create model object, right? So with the help of model object, we are carrying the data from REST client to your controller, controller to service, service to repository, repository to database. That's it. So now let me create the employee model object. So how we can create? Let me take private int id. Okay. So now let me create a few properties. Private string first name. Next, private string last name. Why I am taking these properties examples, right? You can understand easily. So after completing all the courses, all the concepts we are going to create real-time projects, guys. That time you guys can enjoy like anything. Okay, now to make you understanding, I am creating basic projects. After that we are going to implement real-time project, so that there you can create real application. Okay, so now string, which we get a first name, last name, and then create mobile number. So string for mobile number, you need to take long, mobile number, NVMBR number. So now let me create private int age, and let me create email also, private string and email. So now what we can do, we can create setters and getter methods. Right click on that class, source, generate, and select all, then click on generate button. That's it, done, right? So now next, what we need to create now, so our model object is ready. So now we need to map, during the JPA discussion we got to know, right? So what is the JPA? Nothing but Java class. The Java class, the relationship between the Java class and the database table, the relationship between Java class object and the database table is nothing but object relational mapping. Now how we can map our Java class object to database table? Now we are going to, I will write it here. So need to map Java class with database table. So first step, what is that first step? Need to map Java class with database tables. What is the second step? Need to map uh, properties of Java class, with database columns, database table columns. So if you remember this concept, you can understand rest all the concept very easily. If you understand, this is very basic in Hibernate or JPA. So if you know these two concept, you can understand the rest of the concept very easily. So what is the first step? So you need to map your Java class with your database table, and second, you have to map your Java class property, uh, properties Java properties with database table columns, right? How we can now, first step we are going to implement. What we have to do, Java class should map with database table. How we can map? At the rate entity, there is a annotation called at the rate entity. You can see at the rate entity available in Jakarta.persistence API. So earlier actually this annotation is available in Java X.persistence package. Earlier they are having this entity annotation in Java X.persistence package. Now recently the Spring Boot framework, they are uh, restructured that again, and then they are moved that to Jakarta persistence package. Don't get confused. If you join to the any other companies, they might have built the projects from long back. So old projects, this entity annotation will be available in Java X.persistence. So after looking that, you don't get confused. What is this? So I learned this entity is from Jakarta.persistence. When I see the project in another company, they are having Java X.persistence. Is that again I need to learn new one? No, both are same only. They just moved from Java X.persistence package to Jakarta.persistence. That's it. Remaining all the concepts are same only. Okay. So now how we can map our Java class with the database table with the help of entity. So sorry, this is only to establish the relationship. Java class with database table to establish the connection, nothing but relationship. The relationship between Java class object and database table, how we can enable that relationship? You have to specify your model object with at the rate entity annotation. Most of the people knows actually. They knows, but they don't know the concept. Why we are using entity annotation? Then they can create the project. If we ask entity, what is the purpose of entity? Some people to insert the data. To insert the data, we need to specify the entity. That is the answer I got most of the people when I am interviewing. Entity is useful to insert the data. So no, insert the data right. But what is the main concept? The entity is used to maintain the relationship between table, right? The database table. You can see. You can check if you want to go in there. You can see specifies the class as entity. This class, to specify this class as a entity, this annotation is applied to the entity class. So this class will become as an entity is nothing but it will be mapped with database table. Entity is nothing but it will map with database, it will maintain database relationship. So now next, what you have to do right now, I don't want to specify the table name. Okay, I don't want to specify the table name. So let me create. So you need to create the primary key, right? If you want to insert the data in database, you need a primary key. So let me open the project, previous project. We have created the query, right? Create employee. So in employee table, we need a primary key. How we can define a primary key? So who is going to create the table? Now we are not going to create the table, guys. I will go. What I will do? I am not going to create the table. So you can see in our project, I have not implemented a schema.sql. So how we have created the table in HT memory database? We have created schema.sql script file to create the query in H2 in memory database. But now I am not going to create the database table. Who is going to create the database table now? Let the Hibernate create the table. I don't want to create the table. Why I need to create? Let me make use of future from Hibernate. So now table is going to create by Hibernate. Okay. So this employee table is going to create by Hibernate. We no need to create. So now what only thing is that what we have to do, we have to map our entity class with database tables, right? So let me, we need to, if you go to your database table here, employee is there. Let me, I will show you one employee. So this is only MySQL, guys. For testing purpose, I am showing employee table. Okay, don't concentrate on MySQL because we are going to insert in HT in memory database. I just want to show you the table name. You concentrate on only table name here. So this employee table is there, right? So employee table is having columns. So to maintain the what we discussed, to maintain the relationship between database class name with database table name and class the properties with database columns. Now we are going to map that relationship. We are going to maintain that relationship between Pojo class object and your database table. How we can maintain at the rate entity? So you have established the relationship with the database table with the help of at the rate entity. So now next, primary key. So you go to your database. So here you can see id is the primary key, right? Id is primary key. So we have to maintain relationship with the primary key. So our Java class should maintain relationship with primary key. How? At the rate id annotation by specifying jakarta.persistence.id. This is the annotation will establish the connection with uh, primary key. So now, so who is going to create the primary key? So earlier we used to send the ID, right? If you want to insert the data, go to your talent API. Go to your talent API. So here, so when we are inserting the data, who is creating the ID? So we are sending the ID actually from the request. So now we no need to send the ID. So who will send the ID? So who will create the ID? Hibernate will create the ID. We no need to send the ID. Let Hibernate create that ID also. So our job is very easy now. So how we can create that ID? There is a annotation called at the rate generated value. What is that annotation? At the rate generated value. what this id will tell to will what this id will defines. This id will defines the relationship with primary key in database table. And this generated value is nothing but you are not going to send the id from the rest client, so Hibernate will create that id, we no need to send that. So that is the meaning of the generated value. This is having set of strategies I will explain you later. As of now we'll go with default generated value. Okay, so but that means it will start inserting from 1 2 3 4 like that, we no need to send that id. Okay, so now we have mapped primary key with what is the database column here. So id, this table also we are not going to create, guys. I will delete this query, I will delete this table later. Okay, so Hibernate will create this table. So to make you understand, I'm just showing it. So now first name, last name, mobile number, that also I don't want to map. So what will happen, right, this time? So the properties which are there in employee Pojo class, so your database table is going to create like employee. Your table name will create as employee. Your primary key will columns will created with as id, first name, last name, mobile number, age. Same, the name which we have defined here by default. So your Hibernate will create id column, first name column, last name column, and mobile number. So we no need to create the tables. So we just need to specify at the rate entity. That is enough now. Your Spring Boot will take care of it to create the employee table in database. So we currently we are not going to use in MySQL, right? We are going to create in H2 in memory database. So now what I will do, so let me. So our model class object, right? So now what we need to create? We need to create repository layer. So I think it's already 5, right? So shall we implement a repository layer on Monday? Guys, you understood, right? So we'll implement in Monday, or now itself you want to implement. Let me implement one and then go. Okay, let me implement one, guys. Okay, at least one. So how you can establish? Earlier we used to connect with JDBC template, right? Now we have a entity manager. So there is a concept called entity manager. With the help of entity manager, we are going to insert the data in database by using Hibernate or JPA. There is two different ways are there, guys. Two different ways are there. The first way is entity manager. So with the help of entity manager, we can insert the data. So now what we need to create? Let me create find by ID. Public find by ID will find by ID will return your employee class object. Find by ID method. So what you need in find by ID method? You want, so what I have created in Pojo class, I have created, oh, integer I have to okay, let it give integer. So let me create, you have to import the Pojo class object. So here I will give int ID. So what it will return? So employee class object with the help of entity manager. Entity manager dot find. There is a method called find. You can see find what we need to pass. You can see you need to pass entity class object. Entity nothing but your employee class model object. Your employee model object nothing but entity. And you have to pass primary key. You can see you can pass primary key and employee Pojo class object. Let me implement that. So your entity employee dot class, and here you need to pass ID. That's it. Then you just need to return RETU or a return. Now we'll see, guys. Now what I will do, I will just start the server, guys. Let me start the server. So employee entity is created. So now let me start the server. Okay, I need to select that. This is very first time we are going to execute, right? So let me select the project, right click, run as Java application. Another 2 minutes I will finish that class. First we'll show basic concept. Okay. So see now our project started successfully. It is connected with in-memory database. This is the in-memory database, right? So our application dot properties, you can see resources folder, application dot properties is not having anything. So what is the default URL? So that's the reason Spring Boot is created HT in-memory database URL. So what is the username? SA. SA is the username. So let me as of now go with this database URL. Go to your browser. So localhost h2 console. So now click on admin. By default, it will be enabled, right? So what is the URL? H2 in my database. What is the username? SA. By default, SA is the username. You can see what is the default username now? SA. Because we have not added database dependent database resources here, right? So now let me go open and open. There is no password, guys. Connect it. If you observe here, see employee table is created. If you observe, employee table is created. Who is created? We haven't created, we haven't read the script, we haven't added the schema.sql, but you can see table is created in H2 in-memory database. That is the beauty of Spring Boot and JDBC application. So Spring Boot and JPA framework, so or Hibernate framework. So we no need to create the table. What we have to do, we just need to specify your employee class object as a entity. The moment you create, how you can define your model object as entity by specifying at the rate entity annotation. The moment you declare entity annotation, Spring Boot and JPA framework will will automatically maintain the relationship between your database table. Here I have not given table name also. So who is created table? Your JPA framework. You can see this is what the very important feature in JPA application. The table is created. Who is created? By Spring Boot is created. Spring Boot and JPA framework is created your employee table in database in HT memory database. We haven't created this table. Okay. See, you can see database columns also created. Age, ID. See, mobile underscore number. This if you any two values or two words are there. So JPA will create, for example, mobile number. This is the standard for format. Mobile underscore number, first underscore name, last underscore name. This is the format Hibernate will follow the to create the database columns. So this is awesome, guys. We no need to create. So further concept we are going to implement on next class. Okay. Make sure you guys are practicing every day, guys. Thank you so much.